The Mekong River's journey is almost complete. Here in Vietnam, on the fringe of the delta, the river splits into a multitude of channels as it courses towards its final destination. After 4,350 kilometers, it finally reaches the sea. Jagged limestone peaks pierce the jungle below. Their weathered crags a playground for daring acrobats. Magical creatures dance in the undergrowth, while crabs decorate the beaches, foraging for nutrients carried downstream from distant lands. And in the coastal waters nourished by the river, colorful communities thrive in the shallows. The mighty Mekong has run its course. This is the journey's end. The lower delta plain of the Mekong is the final region the river winds through before it empties into the sea. Here, river, land and sea merge into one, creating a fertile world both above and below the waterline. Stretching along the Vietnam coastline, there's one more barrier the river must navigate: stunning karst cliffs. Natural masterpieces formed from marine sediment deposited millions of years ago and carved by the Mekong's course. A fitting final stop for the iconic river's waters to pass through. These cliffs cover 20% of the land here. This area of karst in southern Vietnam is unique. Its geographical isolation from other karst formations has led to high levels of speciation for both plants and animals alike. High in the trees that cloak the craggy limestone cliffs lives a rare and tenacious creature. The silvered langur. Named for its grey-tipped fur and a silvery crest of hair that runs along the top of its head and sprouts from its cheeks. It's an endangered species, threatened by hunting for meat and traditional medicine, as well as habitat loss from mining and agriculture. Silvered langurs are estimated to have declined by more than 50% in recent decades. They're only found west of the Mekong River. Most prefer to live deep in the forest canopy, but this particular troop has opted for a sea view. They've chosen a spot high in the Karst Mountains in the coastal Kien Giang district, 120 meters above sea level. No other population of these monkeys lives in such an extreme environment. With its steep rock faces and razor-sharp ridges, these karst mountains don't look like the most inviting of habitats. But it's precisely because this territory is so inaccessible that the monkeys have chosen it as their home. There's less competition. But surviving life on the edge takes some serious skills. It's nearly sundown, and this group is on the move. They only have a few minutes of daylight left to scale the ragged rock face and reach their sleeping trees. The adult male leads the troop, made up of females, their infants, and subordinate or non-breeding males. There's no easy path to the top, and youngsters must hang on tight for the ride. They have the longest hind legs of any monkey and are able to leap across the lower boulders with ease. Their long tails help them balance. The next part of the journey is more perilous. Between this group and their beds is a sheer rock face. It's a long way up, and the light is beginning to fade. The group watches as the mother goes first. In the course of a day, she may go up and down this cliff face over 10 times. With her baby in tow, this is no mean feat. Finally, she reaches the top. Just in time for nightfall, the group settles down to sleep. Their sleeping trees line the cliff tops that overlook the southwestern Vietnamese coast. This area lies within the Nine Dragons Delta, so called because the Mekong River divides into 9 channels before flowing into the South China Sea. Away from the karst cliffs, the Mekong nourishes the country's most important agricultural plain as it journeys through its delta. The river flows so slowly here that it finally deposits the sediment it's carried for thousands of kilometers, creating extremely fertile soil that's full of nutrients. The Nine Dragons Delta is a complex water world, a melee of floating markets, river traffic, and fishermen all vying for space. Houses crowd the banks. Life revolves around the river. Many of the villages are accessible by rivers and canals rather than road. On the outer edge of the delta, where fresh river water mixes with the incoming salty tide, one particular crop is thriving. This is the land of the coconuts. Palm trees stretch as far as the eye can see, each producing a massive 50 fruits per year. Worth twice as much as rice, coconut farming is one of the most profitable agricultural businesses in the delta. The lowland network of waterways provide a stark contrast to the imposing cliffs that overlook the Mekong's journey into the sea. High on the crags, the silvered langurs feast on forest foliage undisturbed. In order to fuel their high-energy lifestyle, they have a higher proportion of leaves in their diets than any other leaf-eating monkey. They're spoilt for choice up here. There are 322 recorded plant species in the region, and the silvered langur eats most of them. Their teeth have grinding ridges and larger molars, which allow them to chew even leathery older leaves. They also have enlarged salivary glands, which help break down the food. Other primates would find this food difficult to digest, but the langurs have an unusually long body that houses a large 3-chambered stomach. essential for digesting the high content of cellulose they need to consume each day. Silvered langur babies bear little resemblance to the adults. Standing out against the green backdrop, this infant is impossible to miss with its bright orange fur. This peculiarity has fascinated primatologists for years. One theory is that the orange fur reduces the risk of mothers losing their babies amidst the dense foliage. Silvered langurs start breeding late in life, have relatively long pregnancies, and only produce one infant at a time. With such a slow reproduction rate, their infants are precious. Their extreme lifestyle has also had an impact on their parenting style. Unlike most primates, they allow other females to handle their infants from day one. This frees up the nursing mother to consume more calories, and is good practice for future mums to learn how to carry babies across these steep rocks. In fact, studies have shown that mothers who have babysitting experience are almost twice as likely to raise their first offspring to maturity as those that haven't. This young female is eager to get some practice in. She hasn't been asked to look after anyone's baby, so decides to take matters into her own hands. At just a few weeks old, this baby is the apple of its mother's eye. But the roving female also has her eyes on it. The mother senses her advances and moves away. The lone female isn't giving up. She manages to keep hold of her baby, at least for now. There are enough babies to go around, so it shouldn't be long before the enthusiastic young female gets a turn. Though kidnapping probably isn't her best strategy. The limestone cliffs that these monkeys call home are the result of tectonic activity that raised the sea floor 400 million years ago. Sticking out in an otherwise flat plain, these mountains cover just 3.5 square kilometers. Over millennia, water has gradually dissolved the rock, resulting in this unusual jagged surface. Conditions here are extreme. Long hours of intense sunshine and scorching hot temperatures bake the exposed, wind-swept rocks. Plants that live here are specially evolved to deal with these conditions. Their strong roots work their way into the cracks and crevices of the cliff and penetrate deep into the porous rocks to access water and minerals. Some of the roots even release an acid that dissolves the cast. As leaves fall, a shallow layer of soil forms from the leaf litter, which allows new plants to grow. As acidic water, both from the rains and the roots, percolates down through the rock, it dissolves away the limestone, sculpting magnificent caves. This is one of Southeast Asia's most iconic and sacred landscapes. The religious significance of these mountains have so far kept this place safe. Buddhist monks have occupied this land for centuries. Transforming many of the caves into temples. They hold the monkeys in high regard, allowing them to occupy the rugged terrain undisturbed. Female langurs born in this territory will stay here for all of their lives. Males, however, will leave their troop when they reach maturity around 4 years old to join a group of bachelor males or start a family of their own. A daunting task. This infant is about 3 months old. His fur is beginning to turn grey. Under the watchful gaze of his mother, he's starting to explore his environment. He tests his weight on the branches, working out how he can manipulate them in order to help him move around the canopy. He's still learning how to use his tail for balance. Learning social skills is high on the agenda, as navigating life in this difficult terrain is much easier in a group. He finds an infant of a similar age to play with, a baby from another mother in his group. They begin to wrestle, biting and trying to wrangle each other into submission. How they behave now could influence what role they have in the troop's social hierarchy when they reach adulthood. Though it looks rough, at this age their teeth and nails are soft, meaning that the biting and pulling rarely leads to injury. This sort of play not only teaches them about dominance, but helps the two infants increase their muscular coordination. They still have a little while to learn before they'll need to put their lessons into practice and go it alone. For one young male, that time has come around all too soon. He explores the foot of the cliffs near the monks' quarters. He's alone, but not by choice. He's 4 years old, has left his family group and has travelled a long way from where he grew up. By venturing far from his family, he's helping to diversify the gene pool. But he already seems to be missing the benefits of group living. Regular grooming by other troop members kept him free from parasites, but alone he's at the mercy of pests. He either needs to aggressively take over the group of another male or attract single females to form a new group of his own. He scans the trees for potential mates. Maybe he'll have more luck higher up. He spots a pair of eligible-looking females grooming each other on the rocks. Time to impress with his moves. He hurls himself down through the canopy. But these females don't seem to be interested. By the time he reaches their perch, they're nowhere to be seen. Finding your place in another group is a challenge. Right now he's in his physical prime, but the longer it takes, the harder it will get to find a mate. He continues to roam the rocks alone. The concentration of silvered langurs in this area is high, so it shouldn't be too long before somebody is impressed by his skills. For now, he heads back down to the forest floor. It's a drop of 120 meters from the great heights of the clifftop canopy to ground level. Closer to the foot of the mountain, the soil becomes richer, the vegetation more lush. The Mekong's perpetual flow of sediment-rich water gives rise to dense pockets of jungle. The temperature in these rainforests stays at a constantly tropical 25 degrees Celsius, making this the perfect environment for insects. In fact, Vietnam is home to the widest diversity of insects in the whole of Southeast Asia. While some organisms rely on blending in to survive, others simply stand out. Including what could arguably be the prettiest little creatures to occupy the forest floor. They could be mistaken for flowers if they weren't scurrying about. These dainty little organisms are the nymphs of the flatted leaf bug, the juvenile form of the leaf aphid. They're covered in a white, waxy substance that they secrete from their abdomens. This has a very bitter taste, making them undesirable to predators. They dance conspicuously along the plant stems, safe in the knowledge that thanks to their foul, fluffy coats, they are untouchable. This vinegaroon is anything but fluffy. His armor of shell means he's not afraid to patrol the forest floor. Although he looks like a scorpion, vinegaroons belong to a different ancient order of arachnid. He has a secret weapon, and it's not a stinger. He uses his whip-like tail to discharge a vinegar-like mist into the area. The smell is so offensive that few predators dare approach him. He's a loner, devoid of company. But for the most successful dwellers of the undergrowth, those that live in colonies, it's company that allows them to survive. Termites and ants are eusocial. They organize into societies where communal tasks are divided. The huge populations of their colonies show just how effective this social living can be. Termites traverse the forest floor in plain sight, moving together with such fluidity they could almost be classed as one superorganism. And these weaver ants show the perils facing any other insect that crosses their path. Working together, they can take down prey far larger than themselves. They are one of hundreds of species of insects living in colonies that dominate the forest understory. Ants are native to almost all terrestrial habitats in all parts of the globe, with more than 12,500 species known to science and an estimated 10,000 more that haven't yet been described, most of them living here in the tropics. These ants view the world in a very simple way. You're either a member of their colony, or you're not. And that makes you the enemy. One faction of this colony has scored a giant meal. Now they need to take it back to their nest. But it seems they have some competition. They've crossed the path of another colony of weaver ants in the same area. the rival colony tries to take the cricket and carry it in the opposite direction. Although it's impossible for us to distinguish one colony from another, if an ant detects a scent different to its own, it will attack. Finally, the competing group gives up, and the victorious army carries its prize back to the rest of the colony. Here, the forest extends to the very edge of the delta, dipping its toes in the South China Sea. Crystal clear water and gentle waves make this an idyllic scene. An intricate pattern decorates the beach like a piece of modern art. Sand balls, thousands of them, all the same shape and size. They've been created by the sand sculptors of the Vietnamese coast. Bubbler crabs. These tiny crustaceans are widespread on the coastlines of Southeast Asia and live in burrows on the beach. They have spherical bodies with long flat pincers, hairy legs, and eyes on short stalks that can fold away into grooves when the crabs scurry into their burrows. With a body color the same as sand, this crab would be easy to miss, unlike the impressive sand creations he has left behind. This crab is having its lunch. It lives on myofauna, tiny invertebrates that can only be measured in micrometers. He creates the sand balls as he feeds. The crab sifts through the sand, bringing the sand grains to his mouth using his downward pointing pincers. Several mandibles serve as a multi-staged filter to gather the tiny creatures off the surface of each grain. As he removes the microscopic food morsels, he molds the clean sand into perfect balls. This is to prevent him from feeding on the same grains of sand twice. As he generates more and more balls, he clears lanes back and forth in order to venture further and further from his burrow. Each crab can clean every grain within several meters of its home, so competition for space is fierce. This crab is late to the party. It seems his name isn't on the list. These two crabs lock pincers over prime myofauna beach. Confrontations rarely escalate into fights. A raised pair of pincers is usually enough to trigger a quick scuttle to safety. Mostly, they keep busy alongside each other as they transform the whole beach in a matter of hours. But these crabs are up against the clock. In a few hours, this whole area will be covered by water. They must eat as much as they can before the tide comes in. As the rising water washes away their creations, the crabs return to their burrows. The incoming tide deposits a new batch of myofauna into the sand. When it recedes, the meticulous grain-by-grain cleaning will begin again. Elsewhere along the fringes of the delta, the 9 dragons flow through a slightly different habitat. Mangroves. Tangled webs of mangrove trees line the delta's river channels and extend along the coastline. Mangroves dominate the transition zone between the river and the marine environment. Here, one of Asia's mightiest rivers begins to blend with the ocean. These remarkable trees look like they're from another world and are true masters of the environment. They have adapted to thrive where nothing else can gain a foothold. Water here is 100 times more salty than most plants can tolerate and floods twice daily with the rhythm of the tides. But these complex networks of roots have evolved special adaptations that allow mangroves to survive where other plants can't. They act as filters, taking out 90% of the salt from the water before they absorb it. And their snorkel-like roots allow the trees to breathe during high tide. The intertwining, elaborate roots make these mangroves an enchanting place. And they're a haven for life. The submerged roots are the nursery grounds for hundreds of the region's marine species, a protected refuge for young fish before they swim into the open ocean. The Mekong's breathtaking journey finally comes to an end as the 9 dragons empty into the South China Sea. The river discharges a massive 475 cubic kilometers of water annually as it leaves behind the karst cliffs, the jungles and the mangroves. But even here, the Mekong's influence is never far away. The freshwater plume extends several kilometers out into the South China Sea, nourishing an ocean that's richer in biodiversity than nearly any other marine ecosystem on the planet. And this is due to one thing: its huge diversity of coral reefs. Coral reefs are colonies of thousands of tiny animals called polyps. The individual coral polyps obtain their energy and nutrients from the sun via photosynthesizing algae that live inside their coral tissue. These branching corals can grow as much as 20 centimeters each year, which for coral is rapid. Other species, such as Porites coral, grow much slower, at less than a centimeter per year. The coral provides hiding places for hundreds of tropical fish, some of which arrived as juveniles propelled by the Mekong's waters from the mangrove nurseries. Black and white striped damselfish, swimming in a school and ready to dart into crevices should a predator approach. Some fish even protect their patches of coral. Hong Kong butterfly fish form mating pairs and stake claim to their territory. But as the Mekong's water flows into the sea, it can bring an unwelcome gift. It deposits high levels of sediment, which can have a negative impact on the coral. The nutrients it contains accelerate the growth of algae on the reefs, which monopolize space and light. This would be a major issue for the underwater ecosystem. However, all species play their part in maintaining the right balance. This green sea turtle is on a mission. It's the underwater lawnmower. These turtles can grow up to 1.5 meters long and weigh up to 220 kilograms. They have colorful shell patterns that change over time with age. As it swims, it hoovers up large strands of algae, providing it with a nutritious meal and keeping its growth in check. Green sea turtles can live for over 100 years and are vital to the reef's survival. It's not only the algae's growth that needs to be kept in check. The large teeth of this titan triggerfish give a clue as to what job it's in. It's the coral pruner. Smaller fish surround it to feed on the leftovers and other organisms that are stirred up as it goes. Its strong teeth are up to the job. And it has a special mode of swimming that allows it to rotate as it eats, ensuring it can reach all of the nooks and crannies of the reef. The Mekong's nutrients not only fuel the growth of algae, but also plankton, which lures in the biggest fish in the South China Sea, the whale shark. It travels thousands of kilometers to reach these waters. This massive animal can grow up to 12 meters long and can live for between 70 and 100 years. The whale shark has a distinct pattern of white spots and stripes along its body, designed for camouflage as the pattern reflects light. As it glides through the water, it feeds constantly. Its enormous mouth, nearly 1.5 meters wide, engulfs large quantities of tiny plankton that it filters through its gills as it swims. Despite what its name suggests, this shark is a very docile creature. So much so that it usually travels with an entourage of suckerfish. They attach themselves to the whale shark using a dorsal fin as a sucker pad and feed on its parasites as well as scraps of food, feces and small zooplankton, cleaning the whale shark as they nourish themselves. Whale sharks seem to understand the benefits suckerfish have, as they have been observed slowing down and allowing them to attach before swimming off again. Many pairs of species rely on each other to survive, such as these multicolored Christmas tree worms and the coral in which they embed themselves. They use their brightly colored feathery tentacles to filter microorganisms from the water. The worms are poisonous for many of the coral's predators, so act as a deterrent to animals feeding on the coral, while they, in turn, find refuge among the rocky reef. This anemone's tentacles are highly poisonous to all but one fish. Nestled within them is its symbiotic partner, a female pink clownfish. The anemone's long and sweeping tentacles provide the perfect refuge for the fish and her eggs. While the clownfish takes refuge from predators who can't get past the poisonous tentacles, it removes the anemone's waste and parasites. For these relationships to work, both parties need to deliver. Standing out against the reef, this bright purple leather anemone is hard to miss. Its tentacles are closed up, indicating it has indulged in a carnivorous feeding spree and may have ingested shrimp, krill, phytoplankton, and even mussels. These pink clownfish are looking for a place to hide, but can't enter what is usually their safe haven. The anemone is busy transporting its prey to its mouth, which is located at its base. The fish persist, but the anemone remains closed for business. Often, several clownfish will occupy an anemone. Clownfish can actually change their sex according to what's required. The largest pink clownfish is always the sole breeding female. The next biggest in size is the breeding male. And the smallest fish in the group are non-breeding males. When the breeding female dies, the breeding male changes sex to become a female, and the largest non-breeder in turn becomes the breeding male. This sequential hermaphroditism is common in fish and enables them to maintain the ideal gender balance in a constantly changing habitat. One of the ocean's most flamboyant creatures can change its whole appearance in just a few seconds to match its changing circumstances. The cuttlefish. This fine specimen of a male is 42 centimeters long and weighs 5 kilograms. He dazzles with his rainbow coloring, but this isn't for decorative purposes. He's trying to win a mate. He swims over to a female, smaller in size and brown in color. It seems this male's luck is in. He passes the female a sperm sac, which she uses to fertilize her egg. After mating, he sticks around to guard the female against lurking intruder males, who will also try to give her their sperm. Males can outnumber females as much as 10 to 1. And it's not long before one swoops in to attempt a sexual coup. The first male raises his tentacles in an aggressive show of force. But the rival isn't giving up and uses an unusual technique to try to confuse the guarding male. He curls his tentacles up and alters his skin to a mottled brown pattern. Now he looks like a female. Cuttlefish can change their color, shape, and texture at will. Their skin has 200 pigment cells per square millimeter, which they can use to alter their appearance in as little as half a second. But the first male won't be duped that easily. He continues to brandish his tentacles and guard his female. This can go on for hours, but he'll never leave her side. After mating, the female's fertilized eggs are ready. She delivers them into a crevice on the rocks. There's still no rest for the male. Intruders stay nearby looking for any opportunity to intercept. This female will keep mating until she has exhausted her supply of roughly 200 eggs. The eggs will remain there for 3 to 5 months until they're ready to hatch. But these parents may not survive to see the birth of the next generation, as the mating season for some marks the end of their 2-year life cycle. Once she's depleted her egg supply, she'll head away from the cluster. And when the male has exhausted his energy, he too will retreat and die. It's an unceremonious end to a colourful and productive life. On a journey that began on the roof of the world, high in the mountains of Tibet, the Mekong River has carved its route for 4,350 kilometers, draining more than 800,000 square kilometers of land from 5 different countries, dropping a massive 4,500 meters in elevation. As it's passed through an epic range of landscapes and nourished a stunning array of animals, from the mountains of China to the caves of Laos, through the forests of Thailand and the lakes of Cambodia, and finally into the delta of Vietnam. Sculpting landscapes, shaping species, and sustaining the lives of those that depend upon it. The Mekong's legacy is an almost unimaginable wealth of biodiversity. A legacy that will last as long as the river itself continues to flow.